Hey guys, I thought I'd record a video about my top 15 favorite board games. I've been into the hobby for a number of years and I've accumulated some games. I've played lots of games. So I just want to share some of the games that I really enjoy playing. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about number 15. So number 15 is Oriflamme. So this is a game that I was introduced to when during lockdown. I used to play it online with some friends on Board Game Arena, and we really liked the game, so I decided to get a copy. Um, and the way this game works is you have a few factions vying for control of the crown, and each player has a set of cards that represents specific roles from that faction. So you have like a soldier, you have an assassin, you have an archer, and so on. And you on your turn you would play one of your cards into like this queue, right? So you can play it either at the start of the queue or the end of the queue, and you have and you play the card face down. So everyone plays the card face down, and then after everyone has placed a card, um, you can then choose whether you want to keep your card face down or if you want to flip it over and trigger its ability. So if you flip over a soldier, you get to like kill an adjacent card. Or if you flip over a spy, you get to like steal a token from another player. So you have a really interesting balance between trying to keep your card secret, because if you keep your card face down, it accumulates like influence points. But if you flip it over, then you can sort of affect other cards in the queue and gain points in other ways. So you have this interesting tension between players where you don't know what other players have put down in the queue. So, and then someone will play a card that will totally screw up your plans and so on. So it's a really enjoyable game. It's very easy to teach. It doesn't take very long to play. It plays in maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And yeah, I recommend it, so check it out. The next game on my list, number 14, is a game called Shipwreck Arcana. This is a cooperative game, and it's a number-based deduction game. So you have 4 tarot-sized cards out, and each of them will have a mathematical rule on it. On your turn, you draw 2 tokens from a bag, and those tokens will have numbers on them ranging from 1 to 7. And you're supposed to play one of those numbers next to one of the cards, so that your teammates can then guess what the other number you have, the one still left in your hand, which number that is. So for instance, if you draw like a 3 and a 7, you might play your 3 next to a card that says, play this number here if one of your tokens is a 1, 3, or 5, and the other one isn't. So your teammate will then able to deduce, okay, well, his other number isn't 1, 3, or 5. So it's really nice game. It's very rewarding when you win as a team, and it doesn't take very long. Also like around probably 25 minutes to play. So yeah, check out this one. Next on the list is Celestia. So this is a game, it's more of a party game, I would say. It's a bit of a push your luck game. So this is a game that I was first introduced to at a pub in London. So when I first moved to England, I went to this board game night at a pub, and people were playing it, and it just seemed like a lot of fun. So the way this works is you are all crew members on a ship, and the game comes with this really cool 3D model of a ship that you have to put together. So it looks like this. It's really cool. And so you're all crew members on this airship, and you take turns being the captain. What the captain has to do is the captain has to roll dice, and the dice will have different symbols on them. So for instance, you might roll a a red bird and some swords. And then that means you have to pay those resources with cards you have in your hand. Now, these resources are, some of them are more common and some of them are more rare. So if you roll 2 resources that are very, very rare, then people might suspect you're not able to pay it. So after you roll the dice, you then declare to the crew whether you are able to pay it or not. And there's a bluffing element here, so you can totally just lie and say, oh, I don't think I can pay that, or yeah, I can totally pay that, and then not actually have the resources. And based on what you say, your crew will then decide whether they want to stay on the ship or get off and collect whatever treasure there happens to be in the so you're traveling across these floating islands, so they can get off on one of the floating islands, collect the treasure that's there. And sometimes you'll get everyone to get off the ship, and then you're actually able to pay the resources, so you kind of screwed everyone else over. So you have to, it's semi-cooperative because you do want other players to stay on the ship as well, so that they can be the captain and they can pay the resources and get you further ahead. So it's a lot of fun. It's kind of a crowd pleaser. Everyone always enjoys it. It looks really, it's got a nice table presence. It plays up to 6 as well, but I even managed to play it at 7 and I think at 8, and it worked okay. So check out Celestia. Next on the list is a game I don't actually own. Maybe the only one that I don't own. It's called Ethnos. Ethnos is an area control game and also a set collection game. So you have this fantasy realm that you have, the board is a map of this fantasy world. And interestingly, I don't know why, but the map has a similar outline to the outline of Slovakia, which is weird. But the land is divided into these regions, and you need to collect sets of certain mythical creatures like centaurs or halflings or trolls and things like that, and then you play them down, and then you place one of your tokens on that region. Whoever has the most tokens at the end of the round, or I think it's called an age, so you have 3 ages, they then get whatever victory points that that region has. So some regions are more valuable than others, and each type of fantasy creature has a certain ability that triggers when you play it. So if you play wizard, you then I think get to draw cards or refill cards in the market or something like that. If you play giants, you get some sort of a bonus. So I only played it once, but I really enjoyed it. So it might go up on my list or maybe go down depending on future plays. But the only I guess thing I didn't really like about the game was the art. It was kind of generic fantasy art. So I think if the company ever reprinted it with nicer art, I think I would like this game even better. Next up, so Ethnos was number 12. Number 11 is a game called Rome. Rome is an area control game, or also area majority game. So you have these really nice cards that have landscape on them. You build a grid of 6 cards, and then you have these markers that you have to place on the card. Now, the markers can only be placed in specific patterns. So you start the game with 3 patterns. So you might have an L shape, and you might have 2 markers placed diagonally. So you place your markers on the cards, and everyone else also is placing on the same cards. So you might have a situation where one card has 3 of your markers and 2 of another player's markers and 1 of a third player's marker. Now, as soon as the card is completely filled, all the spaces on the card are filled, that card is then completed, and whoever has majority on the card gets the card, and each card also has a new pattern. So basically you're adding patterns to your collection, so then you can play more advanced or just better patterns. And it also has some artifacts that you can buy. So an artifact will let you like move someone else's marker on the board, or rotate your pattern, things like that. So it's really cool. It's for 2 to 4 players. It plays in about 45 minutes to an hour. It's a good game to like introduce to new gamers, but I think also like more veteran gamers can enjoy it. So yeah, that's Rome number 11. The next game on my list, number 10, is Skulls of Sedlec. So this is how the game arrives. It arrives in this wallet that can fit in your pocket, but I actually keep the game in another container because it's I sleeve the cards, and I also have a few expansions so they don't fit in the wallet anymore. So this is a game from a company called Button Shy Games, and their specialty is that they make micro games, usually games that are, well, almost exclusively games that are 18 cards, but with expansions, you do have more than 18. So Skulls of Sedlec. So this is a game where you are playing as monks who are excavating skeletons buried in this monastery, and you are supposed to stack the skulls to form a pyramid. And the skulls have different types of they represent different types of people. So you have peasants, and you have criminals, and you have romantics, and you have I think these are priests or bishops, and so on. And the idea is that some characters want to be buried next to other characters. So for instance, criminals want to be buried next to priests so that they can get salvation in the afterlife. Royals want to be buried above peasants and above other royals. Romantics they want to be buried next to each other, so you'll have to like stack them up in such a way that they're adjacent. And the game is quite light. It's intended as a 2-player game, but I've played it at 3 players, and you can also play it with more if you have some of the expansions. Regarding the expansions, there's one called Executioners, which has these guys, and that's a really good expansion. I really recommend it. So the way Executioners are scored is you score points based on all the criminals that are connected to that executioner. So you might have like these 2 cards next to each other, right? And so you'll score points for this criminal and this one. Yeah, so that's really good. The other expansions are not that great. And yeah, it's a light game. It's a good game. The art is really great. The scoring is interesting. So definitely check it out. And also it fits in your pocket, so why not? Next up on the list, number 9, is also a party game called Paranormal Detectives. So in this game, you are playing as detectives with psychic abilities who can communicate with ghosts, and you're trying to solve a murder. So the ghost is sort of still hanging around. It hasn't passed on to the afterlife. So you're trying to ask questions of it to find out how it died, who killed it, what weapon was used, and so on. And the ghost can only answer in ways you would expect a ghost to communicate through, so the ghost can like make a sound, or it can like point at an object, or one of my favorites is that the ghost can draw something using your hand. So you will sort of hold a marker, and then the ghost will sort of move your hand and draw something that way. So it's really thematic, and the art is just gorgeous. So this is a really, really interesting game. it can be quite difficult to understand exactly all the circumstances of how the ghost died, but when you do get it, it feels very rewarding. So yeah, let's check it out. Number 9 is a game called Regicide. Now, I don't own the actual game, but this game can be played with a standard deck of cards. I did pre-order the actual game, so the only difference is that the actual game, which was a Kickstarter campaign, it is just an actual deck of just a standard deck of cards, but each card, so the face cards and the number cards, all have art on them. That's really nice. So it makes the game more immersive. The way it works is you have so you're basically fighting against the royals. So first you're fighting against all the jacks, then you're fighting against all the queens, then you're fighting against all the kings, and each type of royal has a certain health pool and a certain attack value. So jacks have like 20 health and 10 attack, queens 30 health and 15 attack, and so on. And you're playing down, so you each have a hand of cards, right? It's a cooperative game, so you each have a hand of cards, and you're playing down a card from your hand, and that will deal damage to the royal. But each suit has a special power. So for instance, hearts replenish cards from the discard into your draw pile. Diamonds let you draw cards from your draw pile, or tavern as it's called, and kind of replenish your hand. Clubs do double damage, and spades shield you against damage. So for instance, if you play like a 5 of spade against the jack of hearts, you will deal 5 damage and you will shield for 5 damage. So when it comes time to take damage, you only need to take 5 damage instead of 10. And the way damage is absorbed is you just discard cards from your hand equal to the value of the attack of that royal. Now, the catch is that each royal is immune to the power of its own suit. So if you're trying to play like a diamond card in order to draw a card, but you're playing it against a jack of diamonds, then it will still deal damage, but it won't trigger the special effect of that suit. And there's a few other interesting mechanics, like aces can be played with other cards, and then you sort of get the power of both suits. The Joker can be used to negate the immunity of one of the royals. And you can also play cards down in like pairs or 3 of a kind and so on, as long as they don't exceed 10 in value. So yeah, it's a really good game, and it's amazing that it can be played with a standard deck of cards. I also bought these D20 cubes, and I use this to keep track of the royals' health and damage. But there's also a free companion app that you can download and use to track the stats for the royals. So very, very good game. Amazing that all it requires is a deck of cards. So that's number 8, Regicide. The next game on my list, number 7, is a game called Fantasy Realms. This is a card combo game, and it only has 53 cards, but they're all unique. And the goal of the game is to have a hand of cards that will score the most points at the end of the game. So you start out with 7 cards, and this game, by the way, plays 2 to 6 players. So you each have a hand of 7 cards, and on your turn you draw a card. So you can either draw from the draw deck or from the discard pile. So whenever someone discards, it goes into like a shared area. So you draw a card and then you discard a card. And you want your card to synergize in the best possible way. So some cards will work better than others. So for instance, if you have a few cards that are the army suit, you might want to have a leader that will give you points for every army card that you have. And it's a game that's quite easy to get your head around. The only tricky part is actually doing the math, so adding the numbers. But there's an app for that. There's like a free app online that you can go in and like put in all your cards, and it'll tell you what your score is. So that's how we usually score the points. Yeah, it's kind of it's also a fairly light game. But it's interesting, and you always try to beat your own previous score and everyone else's score in this round. So definitely worth looking into. Number 6. Number 6 is a game called Nine Tiles Panic. This is a small box game by a company called Oin Games, and pretty much all of their games are this size. They have a couple that are slightly bigger. And in this game, there has been an alien invasion. And the aliens have stormed this small town in the middle of nowhere, and the government sent its agents to catch them. The aliens, what they like more than anything is hamburgers. So they're just like going around town looking for hamburgers, and agents are trying to like run after them and catch them. So that's just the kind of background story. But what the game actually is, it's a tile laying game and a pattern matching game. So you have, each player has 9 tiles, and the tiles are double-sided, and you're trying to construct a 3x3 grid. Right, so this is what the tiles look like, and each round will have 3 objectives, and they change between rounds. So one objectives might be have the most agents on one road, right? So you'll see this tile has like an agent, and this tile also has an agent. So maybe you want to connect them like this, right? Something like that. And your city has to be valid as well. You can't just put roads any which way you like. All the roads have to like connect in a certain way. You can't have loops. All the roads have to like lead in and out of town. So you're basically frantically trying to like build this this town and score the objectives. And the catch is that whoever finishes first then grabs like this token to represent like the first person who finished, and then he flips a timer, like a send timer, and that's how much time everyone else has left to finish their town. So now everyone is panicking and trying to like get their towns complete, and yeah, it's quite it's quite an interesting experience. I like games where you match patterns, so, and the art is really nice, and I think it's an interesting game, and the objectives keep the game quite fresh. The only thing I don't like about the game is the scoring, because the way the scoring works is whoever scores the most on an objective gets as many points as there are players. So if you're like 5 players, then you get 5 points. Next player after that scores 4 points, and so on. But if 2 players are tied, let's say you both had an equal number of agents on one road, then the tiebreaker is whoever finished their city first. So there's like 2 tiers, and it's a bit annoying having to figure out, well, who should, if 2 players are tied, which one of them finished first. It's just a bit cumbersome to sort of do that scoring process. But other than that, I really, really like this game. Doesn't take up much space. It wasn't very expensive. So if you enjoy this kind of game. Next up on my list is a game called Crows. Or the full name is Tyler Sigmund's Crows, because there's an older version that came out. So the new one, they just named it after the designer, I believe. And this is a pattern recognition game and tile laying game. So you're playing as wizards on this in this desolate world. It's very like dark and barren, and you're playing down. So on your turn, you play down 1 tile, and then you place this totem on one of the tiles. and your goal is to attract as many crows as you can to your totem, and crows will flock in certain ways, right? So crows will sort of like fly in a straight line. They'll fly to whichever totem is closest, and they won't fly over gaps. So if there's like gaps between the tiles, they won't fly over them. And there's some special tiles as well. So if your totem is placed on a certain tile, then crows will be more likely to flock to it, or if they do flock to it, it will like double the points. There's also spells that you can play, so you can sort of manipulate the crows on the board and sort of like move them around or prevent your opponent from getting them. So sometimes you'll place your totem in such a way that you think you're going to get lots of crows, but then the player after you places their totem in such a way that they take half of your crows away. I've played this game 4 or 5 times. I have never won it, not once. So, but I still like it, and I still want to play it again, and I think I will be able to beat it one day. So yeah, Tyler Sigmund's Crows, that's number 5. Number 4 is another micro game, also by Button Shy Games. It's called Antinomy. And Antinomy is a game for 2 players. And it's a game where you are playing as wizards, represented by these staffs. And you have also these cards with symbols on them and numbers and colors. So you are 2 wizards battling it out across time and space. So you're basically traveling forward and backward in time, trying to form time paradoxes and collect paradox crystals. So to form a time paradox, you need to collect a set of 3 cards, and it can be a set of 3 cards of the same color, same symbol, or same number. The catch is that at any given point, one color will be out of play. So if blue is out of play, then you cannot use blue cards to complete your set. And every time someone creates a time paradox, the color changes, so then another color is out of place. So maybe you've been collecting like purple cards, but all of a sudden your opponent created a time paradox, and now purple cards are out of play, so you can't use purple cards anymore. And it's a really cool game, especially given that it's only 18 cards. So you have a timeline made up of 9 cards. 1 card will be face down, and that will represent the codex. So that will represent the color that is out of play, and each of the players will have 3 cards in their hand, and and you're basically moving your wizard forward and backward in time. And to move forward in time, you need to play a card from your hand for its number value, and the numbers range from 1 to 4. So if you play like a card with 2 on it, then you'll move 2 spaces forward. To travel backward in time, you can either play a card for its color or for its suit. So you might play like a red color to travel backwards to any red color in the timeline as far back as you like, or you might play a key to travel to a key card anywhere on the timeline, well behind you on the timeline. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting mechanics here, and if you land on the same space as another wizard, then you battle it out, and then you kind of both show your hand, and whoever has the most cards wins and steals a paradox crystal from another player. That's the gist of it. A really cool game. I really enjoy it. So that's number 4. The next game on the list, number 3, is Scout. This is a game I ordered from Amazon in Japan because it's not available to buy in Europe yet. And this is a ladder climbing game. What this means is that one player will play down a card from their hand, or multiple cards, and the next player after them will have to beat the cards that they played. So if I play a pair of 2s, the the next player will have to play a pair of 3s, or maybe a run of 3 cards, so like a 4, 5, 6, and so on. And the catch is that when the game starts, all the players are dealt cards. So it'll either be 9 or 11 cards, I think. And you pick up your cards, and you cannot reorder them. So the order they are dealt to you, that's the order you have to play them as. So the only thing you can do is, if you want to start the game, the cards are all double-sided. So what you could do is you could sort of turn your hand over. So let's say that I start the game with, I don't know, this hand, let's say, right? So I have this hand, and I can already see that I have, what do I have? This is a really bad hand. I don't have any like pairs next to each other. I don't have any, oh, actually, wait a minute. Oh, there we go. So with this hand, I have a 6, 7, 8, right? 6, 7, 8. So it's kind of decent. But if I wanted to, what I could do is I could flip my hand over and have a look at it this way. So now I have 3 9s. That's not bad, right? But you can only do that once. So let's say I play down my 3 9s, and the next player over cannot beat my hand. What they could do is they could scout, and scouting is the action of picking up one of the cards that I played and adding that into your hand. And when you do that, you can actually slot the card in any which way you like in your hand. So you can have it like with, let's say, with the 9 up or the 6 up, and you can put it next to like between a 5 and a 7. So you have like a 3-card straight of 5, 6, 7. Or you can put the 6 next to and 2 other 6s, and then you have like 3 6s. And when someone scouts from you, you get a point. And it also weakens the cards you have left on the table. So the next player after that will maybe be able to beat 2 9s. And it's very interactive because you're always paying attention to what other players are doing. You're always trying to think which cards are you going to play. Are you going to play a really strong hand? Or you're going to try and maybe get rid of a 1 card so that you can push other cards closer to each other and form a stronger set for a future play. And if you finish like a round, so if you play down cards and it comes back to you with everyone like scouting from you because they couldn't beat your hand, then the round is over. And everyone adds up their points, and they deduct whatever cards they have left in their hand. They deduct that from their total points, except for you, because the cards got back to you. So you don't have to deduct. That's like the reward for playing a really strong hand. Also, if you completely run out of cards, if you clear your hand, you also don't need to deduct anything. And you play a number of rounds equal to the number of players, and it's just a really cool game, kind of minimalistic. It has like 1 core mechanic, and it does it really well. So check out Scout. Number 2 on my list is a game called Parade. So this is a game that you can play it with any group. I usually bring it to game night, wherever. It's a small box game, so it's not a problem to carry around. It's got an Alice in Wonderland theme, and it's a game where you're trying to have the fewest points at the end of the game. So you basically have, you started with 6 cards in a row, and they form the parade. And on your turn, you're playing down a card to the end of the parade, with the goal being either to not pick up any cards or to pick up cards in such a way that you will have majority in that color. Because if you have majority in a certain color at the end of the game, instead of adding up the points on the for all of the cards, you'll turn them over, and then each card will be worth just 1 point. So if you have like 2 greens, and they're 7 and 3, and at the end of the game 2 greens is the majority, then you flip those over. Instead of being worth 10 points, they're worth 2 points. Yeah, so it's quite an interactive game. It's very light. It's a bit thinky. Um, it's got nice art. It's got an interesting scoring mechanic, and I just always enjoy playing it. So that's Parade. Now, number one, and this is probably going to come as no surprise to most of you, is War Chest. So yeah, so War Chest. I'm sure that most of you who know me probably know that I like this game. The reason it's number one is I've played it over 1,000 times online. I've played it a couple hundred times in real life, and I still really enjoy it. I keep, there's always something to learn from it. You can always like learn a new strategy from someone you play against. There's still a lot of people who beat me at it online, which is good. It means the game is still challenging. It also has I also have the 2 expansions, Nobility and Siege, which has collected some dust. They're both really good expansions, and yeah, I still really like this game after playing it for a few years now. So that's number one, War Chest. For those of you who don't know, War Chest is a 2 or 4 player game where you are playing down unique units, like military units, so like an archer, a pikeman, a cavalry, a knight, and so on. You play them on the board, and you're trying to capture control points on the board. So you sort of move your units around, you control bases, you can eliminate other players' units, and it's very, very strategic. So some units are better against others, and some units work very well with other units. If you have both of those units, then you could use like a special strategy. Yeah, and it's a really good head-to-head game, and yeah, I just really like it. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'd be happy to hear about your top games if you want to post them in the comments. And yeah, maybe you'll add one of these games to your collection and enjoy it as well. So that's it. Have a great day.